We fired our top talent. Best decision we have ever made. Free Code Camp, you actually just reached out recently for a sponsorship. Are you trying to tell me I'm not top line talent here? Is that what you're saying? Are you implicitly calling me soft? Is that what you're saying? I don't know how I feel right now. I honestly don't know how I feel right now. I'm hurting right now. Jonathan, let's go. You will never be able to understand any of what I've created. I am Albert effing Einstein, and you are all monkeys scrabbling in the dirt. Oh, beautiful wife. Thank you. So our resident genius, Dr. Jekyll, explosively completed his transformation into Mr. Hyde. He declared this in front of our product design team, developers, management, and pre-launch customers. One of our project sponsors had the temerity to ask when the problem crippling our product would be fixed. Wait. Someone actually said this out loud? Hell yeah. Dude, can I somehow be in that meeting? I want to be called a monkey scribbling in dirt. Like, I want to be that guy. I want to be sitting there going, oh, I'm too stupid. Yeah, I'm too stupid. I want to be in there. I want to see this. Genius is a fickle beast. Sometimes you have the good fortune to work with a mad genius. Other times you are doomed to work with pure madness. I love that statement. There was a genius, the guy that wrote The Rime of the Mariner, Coleridge. And throughout his life, he struggled with alcoholism. And he would often go mad, and he would talk. In fact, another great poet, I forget the guy's name, said that he would talk from dawn until dusk, or he used some specific phrase that Milton also used in Paradise Lost when describing Satan's fall from heaven to hell. And he said the same thing, that Coleridge could talk like the devil, and he would actually turn people like, there's writings about people saying, I am not willing to meet with you again because of how much you talk, and like how mad he was. Genius is real, and it can be crazy. To me, this isn't a genius. This is just a blowhard. Other times you are doomed to work with pure madness. There are also times when it's hard to tell the difference. This story is about the fall from grace of an extremely gifted team member with a deep understanding of our product's architecture. He had an uncanny ability to forecast future requirements and a ton of domain-specific knowledge. Ooh, this is a hard fire. That's a hard fire. When someone can do this, that's a hard fire. He was our top contributor. He was killing our flagship project. Ooh, we'll call this person Rick. Effing Rick. You should have, first off, huge fail here. Should have called him Tom. Everybody knows about Tom. Tom's a genius. You wouldn't understand this. You called him Rick. Mr. Sanchez? Pickle Rick? Good old-fashioned pickling, you know what I mean? Rick was universally recognized on the team as the top talent. He was the lead developer and architect of the software projects. Anytime anyone had a question about code or needed help with the task, they would go to Rick. Rick had a giant whiteboard installed in his office used only for this purpose. It was always cluttered with ghosts of the past discussions that wouldn't quite erase. Anytime there was a particularly challenging... By the way, if you can get a whiteboard in your office, your IQ, your perceived IQ goes up an entire generation, like 15 points. It's the fastest way to make people think you're smarter, is just be closer to a whiteboard, right? Proximity to a whiteboard. It's just like stocks. It's like the Netflix stock. Honestly, it's just like Netflix stock. Yes, we're going up today. We're going up, people. 0.13%. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, boys. Red Lobster's on me tonight. Anytime there was a particularly challenging problem, Rick would handle it. Rick had a server with the same specs as our production server installed at his desk. He used this to run the entire application stack independently and troubleshoot every layer at once. Oh yeah. Rick didn't need anybody else. Rick preferred to work alone in his private workspace. Rick didn't need anything anybody else built. He built everything he needed from scratch because it was infinitely better than the paltry offerings of mere mortals. That's pretty exciting. Soon, Rick stopped attending meetings. All right, yeah. That's a power move right there, Rick. Okay. This is a power move right here. Okay. I'm just not attending meetings. Okay. I aspire to be Rick. Yeah. I think we need to all aspire to be Rick right now. Rick didn't have time for meetings anymore because there was too much to code. Let's go, Rick. Rick closed his door. His whiteboard lay fallow. Rick no longer had time to train anyone because he had too much to solve on his own. Interesting. So there's a kind of a weird story going on here. I wonder if this whole fall from grace, this whole Milton fall going on right here from dawn to dusk, I wonder if part of the problem also lay in the management of Rick. Let me guess, the next step he did was ask the HR how strict the sexual harassment policies were. Sounds like a move a Rick would do. I'm just saying. Because this already sounds like people really like what he's producing, so they let Rick keep making these bad decisions, thus creating Rick into the villain, right? All legends live long enough to become villains. Let Rick cook. They let Rick cook. That's the problem, is they kept letting Rick cook. They made Rick. Okay? A backlog grew behind Rick. Bugs were popping up in old tools he built. They snapped his attention from meeting commitments on new product development. Got to be careful about this. I mean, homegrown tools are both the best thing and the worst thing. Right now, I'm in the process of making a determination about using an industry standard tool or what we can do ourselves to meet our specific needs. And our specific needs are just different than what the industry needs. But at the same time, this is a real problem about building your own tools, is that you will lose time because you also have to start meeting things. Homegrown is the worst. It's not the worst. Sometimes homegrown is the best. Type 1 in the chat if you love React. There are a couple ones. There's not a lot of ones, but there is some ones in chat. Think about that for a second, though. That's a homegrown tool. Okay. What about Solid? Anyone here want Solid? That's the thing, is that just because something's homegrown doesn't mean it's bad or good. Homegrown works if the company that produces it makes room for it to be successful. Does that make sense? Yes, I like Metal Gear Solid. When I worked on Falcor, Netflix Falcor should have been more successful. Honestly, it should have been so much more successful than it was. Honestly, there's a lot of good things about Falcor. I think there's some things that we could have made a lot better. Falcor had a lot of really good ideas in it. The reason why it wasn't successful is that pretty much at one point it was just me programming. It was really, really hard, and the problem space was huge. Falcor mentioned, let's go. I ain't Rick. I'm just saying, you need tools, you need support, you need someone that's thrown together the LSP, you need somebody that's thrown together documentation, you need somebody that's also meeting bugs, that's talking with people, you also need someone that's managing the community. Falcor's community, when we released Falcor in 2015, I think, to the public, it had 5,000 stars on GitHub. That's crazy back then. That was like day one. You realize all of a sudden there was like thousands, I'm going through thousands of issues, trying to fix all these people's issues, responding to everything. It started showing up on questions on Stack Overflow. All of a sudden, I'm on Stack Overflow answering all these questions. Then at work, people are like, why isn't this delivered? Why isn't this delivered? Where's all these things? And you be like, this is real. You can't let Rick happen. Of course, these bugs were happening because the users had misstated their assumptions. Of course, there wasn't any problem in his work. Of course. On our project dashboard, green flags changed to yellow, yellow changed to red, and red lights started blinking. One by one, task statuses changed to impeded. Everyone was waiting for Rick. The project manager got a 6-month extension from a sponsor. At the end of the 6 months, production readiness was estimated to be 7 months away. At the end of the year, production readiness was 2 years out. I totally get it. I totally get that software estimating is really, really hard. I know, where is management in all this? Well, I mean, the problem is that there's a beast. They've created a beast. Rick was their own creation. I mean, obviously, Rick allowed it to happen. Probably got a lot of accolades, slaps on the back. There's probably people being like, wow, I can't believe you created this thing. This thing is so useful for what we're doing. I'm not saying he was right. He should have had the wisdom to know not to build your own tools. But also, when everyone's cheering you on, do you build your own tools? Rick got the premium bathroom ramen all the time. He did. For a fact pick, he was getting that premium, hand-fed Wagyu bathroom ramen. Attaboys are nice. Attaboys can make terrible decisions. Rick was churning out code faster than ever. He was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Everyone knew only Rick could pull the team out of this mess. Everyone held their breath and waited for Rick to invent the miracle cure that would mend this crippled project. Every day, Rick grew more belligerent and isolated. Really? Have you ever worked 7 days a week? You know what happens when you do that? That's some big Rick energy right there. The mask was coming off. Jekyll was becoming Hyde. I participated in my first meeting with the project team about 2 years after the original agreed release date. I'd been aware of the project for a while because it had grown infamous in my organization and hadn't been assigned to it. I was sent to see if we could save it. My first meeting on the project was the aforementioned Albert Einstein meeting. I dove into the source code. Rick was right. No one could possibly understand what Rick had created, except for Rick. It was a reflection of the workings of his own mind. Some of it was very clever. A lot of it was copy pasta. It was all very idiosyncratic, and it was not all well documented. I went to our CIO with the verdict. Only Rick would ever be able to maintain this product. Plus, every day that Rick worked on the project moved the delivery date back a week. That's an oof right there. Rick was a negative 10x engineer all along. Like we've said quite a bit on this channel for a long time, that the only true 10x engineer is the engineer that can create 10x the work. They just need more Ricks, honestly, just more Ricks. We sat down with Rick and had a conversation about his role in the project. We reviewed our concerns. We sidestepped his self-comparison to Albert Einstein. That's probably a good move. If anyone ever says that they're on the level of Albert Einstein, probably a good move to avoid it. They drove Rick into burnout, then fired him. Yeah, that's what we're about to look at. Free Code Camp, I don't think this article is doing what you think it's doing. Free Code Camp, I'm not sure if you're reading the article the way other people are reading it. We explained our new strategy. The team was going to collaborate on building new products from scratch. This effort would be very limited in scope and would only provide the bare essentials to get us to production. The whole team would contribute and be able to support it. No bottlenecks. How did Rick react to this? The only way Rick could. Rick exploded. Yeah, imagine working on something for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, after being cheered on and told that you're great at this, only to become slowly more and more burnt out, to at the end, someone says, we're going to throw away all those years of work. They are, Dr. Frank. Like, I just think about this for Rick, like from Rick's perspective for a second. Dude, what? I mean, here's the real deal, though. You should always control your emotions. There's no excuse to, like, you should really never try to let yourself explode. They created a main character and then realized there ain't no main character. I feel for Rick. Albert Einstein said some. Albert Einstein was feisty. I hope you know that. All of Albert Einstein's quotes, none of them are nice. Yeah, I don't know. Work 7 days a week in a row for a while and see how your temper is. Judo, that's what happened to me. That's the Falcor time. Dude, I flew off the handle at some point. I went to my boss, met with her, and I was like, I quit this shit. I quit. Fuck everything. That was me. I did that. It's what happens when you work too much. You lose it. You lose perspective on life. Rick wanted no part of this farce. If we couldn't appreciate his genius, that was our fault, not his. Rick predicted that within months we'd come crawling back to him, begging him to save us. Rick screamed that we lacked the basic mental capacity to appreciate genius when it was staring us in the face. The one thing I don't get about Rick, though, is have you ever been in this situation? I feel like if you've been in this situation, I wouldn't be screaming this. I'd be screaming like, why the hell haven't you done all these things, right? Like, I feel like I'd be screaming a different set of tunes. Sadly, after this, Rick rejected months of overtures by leadership. He refused to take time off or allow any work to be delegated. He rejected repeated attempts to introduce free open source frameworks to replace his hard-to-maintain bespoke tools. He reverted code changes, including tested bug fixes by other developers. He asserted that he wouldn't be held accountable for supporting other people's work. He continued publicly belittling his colleagues. We fired Rick. I mean, I do agree. Public belittling is not good. I think this is more based on a true story. I don't know. I just assume Free Code Camp probably wouldn't want to exaggerate too hard about somebody. Can we all just agree on this one? This is a no Rick team. It took about a week for the dust to settle. It took time for the shocked team to gather themselves after losing their embattled guru. Then I saw them huddle around a whiteboard. Collaboration. Stock photo of collaboration. You can tell because it has a hard hat, and no person in the universe has rolled up paper at their desk this tall. They collaborated. They designed a replacement product. It would be much simpler. It wouldn't have all the bells and whistles, nor would it anticipate requirements from 5 years down the product roadmap. Never write real code without a real hard hat. Rick's product supported a dynamic workflow with over 15,000 permutations. In reality, 99% of our use cases followed one of 3 paths. Holy shit. Wait a second. I know this plot. This is the Black Mirror Choose Your Own Adventure movie. Wait a second. Black Mirror Choose Your Own Adventure. This is just Bandersnatch. Are they retelling Bandersnatch? Is that what we're getting right now? This is such a Bandersnatch moment. Netflix mentioned, let's go. This removed over 30% of Rick's work. The team hard-coded the workflow. By the way, this is like the greatest way to do things. I do want to say that if you're building something that has a workflow, just build the effing workflow. Stop trying to create some system that's going to solve every possible workflow ever created. It doesn't work that way. It wouldn't have custom hand-coded components for every task. They stripped out every bespoke dependency that they could buy instead of build. Nice. This removed hundreds of hours of Rick's contributions, but it also removed thousands of hours of technical debt. We obtained an agreement from the project sponsor to shut off the edge case functionality. This had served only 5% of our pre-launch user group and was responsible for about a quarter of the product's complexity. We re-released the product to this group. It consisted of 10% of Rick's original code, which was pretty stable. It also had a few thousand lines of new code to replace about 150,000 lines of incomprehensible mess. That's a lot of coding. That's a lot of coding. The team had replaced 5 years of work in about 6 months. Over the next few months, we expanded from pilot to full customer release. Not only had we replaced what Rick had built, we sped past him and fully launched the product, all in under a year. The result was less than a fifth the size of complexity of what Rick had built. Yeah, if only there was somebody. Hear me out here. Hear me out here, everybody. Just hear me out. Just for a second, okay? Imagine if there was like a position where somebody manages the product and prevents people from over-engineering it. Imagine. Not possible? I don't think that exists? Okay. That'd be amazing. Yeah, I know. I'm an idea man, okay? A scrum mommy. We need a scrum mommy. Immediately. Soy Chaotic, where are you? I always call you Soy Chaotic. I know it's Soy-cotic, okay? But in my head, it's Soy Chaotic, okay? Because that's more descriptive, I feel like. You're our scrum mommy, so I need you in here telling Rick how to live. Rick, you could save him. You could change him, okay? I believe in you. It was also hundreds of times faster and nearly bug-free despite having been assembled in a fraction of the time and serving 10 times as many customers. That went back to Rick's other products. They threw away his old code too. They re-released released another product after his 3 years in development with 3 months of concerted team effort. There were no Ricks left on the team. We didn't have any mad geniuses building everything from scratch, but our productivity was never higher. Rick was a very talented developer. Rick could solve complex business logic problems and created sophisticated architectures to support his lofty designs. Rick could not solve the problem of how to work effectively on a team. This is a hard one. I still go back to this one as being a very hard one. I like using open source tools until they quit fitting your needs. Then you kind of have to build from scratch or find a new tool. What a long LinkedIn post. Rick's presence was destructive in several ways. First, he created a cult of dependence. Any problem eventually became a Rick problem, a myth he encouraged. Developers learned to stop trying and just wait for Rick. Second, he didn't write maintainable code. He never documented or tested anything, and he failed in spite of his own intelligence. His belief in his personal infallibility trumped common sense. Third, he was personally destructive. Team members didn't want to speak up and offer their own ideas because he always berated them for it. Rick only respected Rick and went out of his way to make everyone else feel small. Fourth, he lacked all personal accountability. No failure was his fault. He sincerely believed this and prevented him from learning his own mistakes. I don't believe Rick started out this way. I saw him at his worst. This was after years of working escalated overtime and facing increasing criticism from customers and colleagues. It's sad that Rick descended this far. His manager shared in this responsibility. This is good. I'm glad that because you know what? This should have been classic narcissism. Everyone's a narcissist. Okay, real talk. Time and circumstances, people. Time and circumstances. That's what separates you from Rick. Some people are more narcissistic than others. I feel like that's kind of a narcissist point of view, my friend. I hate when you decide to use a tool and then it takes longer to make it work in your use case, and it would have been just to write the own thing directly to fit your needs. Sometimes it's hard to know which way. Yes, but that's the thing, is that I feel like a responsible developer first fails by using open source and then fails by trying to write it internally. You should first fail by using open source. Unfortunately, Rick was so far gone that he couldn't or wouldn't be brought back. No amount of coaching, feedback, time off, or assignment to other projects could change his toxic behavior. By this point, I mean, firing actually is a pretty good move. Like, sometimes you need a sharp wake-up call, and that can really help you, or you'll just descend further, depending on which one. By this time, the whole team knew he was destructive, but the cult of dependence was so strong that everyone believed he was the only option. There is always another option. Your team strength is not a function of the talent of individual team members. It's a function of their collaboration, tenacity, and mutual respect. And their talent as well, also. Maybe it is also, like, because if you have a really tenacious, highly collaborative, very respectful group of idiots, you're still gonna build bad software. There's definitely, you can't just throw talent out the window. Maybe talent is still semi-relevant, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you gotta put like a little something in there. Focusing on building teams that value each other and try to bring the best out of one another. Together, they'll be able to tackle greater challenges than Rick could ever fathom. It's just like Wheel of Time, when women can link together, but a man can't link together without a woman. And so therefore, a woman could defeat a man by joining with another woman. Even the strongest man could be defeated by multiple women. Teamwork makes the dream work. Everybody knows that Wheel of Time reference. Let's go. Not Amazon Wheel of Prime. Okay, if you haven't seen Wheel of Prime, you don't need to watch that. But Wheel of Time, good book. Hey, if you don't know Wheel of Time, you're a loser, that's all. Come on, you don't read extensive world-building fantasy that's like 10,000 pages long? What do you guys do with your free time? Events described in this essay took place many years ago and do not reflect the opinions or experiences of my current employer. I have published follow-up story with our lessons learned if you're interested in reading more. And then this is just like, hey, I got a physics degree from Stanford University. I've never worked with anyone named Rick. Okay, good. Rick treating his team is equal to Prime treating his chat? Yeah, I mean, but there's a difference here, okay? You guys are actual idiots. Like, I don't know what Rick's team was like. Okay, I don't know anything about who Rick was working with. Hey, YouTube chat rules! Gosh, get him out of here. Oh, shit. That's pretty good. I have a cousin, Rick. A little torn on this one. Rick didn't fail alone. Yeah, I'm torn on this one too. Rick did not fail alone. I think what I see a couple really good lessons here. One, the encouragement of the self-propelled individual can be very destructive. And you see this actually quite a bit at Netflix in the sense that everybody works kind of more in silos, and silos are great if someone can execute within that silo, and silos can also be very destructive if you have to have more and more cross collaboration. And so that's kind of like, it's both really, really fantastic and both really, really hurtful sometimes. Sometimes you have to go into something and it's really hard to work in that something because it's so siloed off. It's such a representation of that that individual's way of doing something. And so is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. Buzz factor is important. And right now, there's a lot lot of bus factor, you know? How does a solo dev get feedback? That's another thing. It's very hard. The silos are both great and terrible. You know what I mean? That's why you have to have standards. You have to have standards, but standards, I mean, the problem with standards is process. It's always the same thing. Process is both good and bad. I'm a bigger fan of less process. I don't think I should tell what another team should do. I think that team should make that decision. But that naturally leads to silos. But that's okay, in my personal opinion. But here's the deal. If that other team is dysfunctional and can't ever get something off the ground, that's a failure of the manager. The manager should have known things aren't going well, that collaboration isn't going well, and that way you can get rid of this entire process. Let engineers discuss what they need, and management is supposed to be there to make things work. I don't know why people want this constant manager syncing status updates, every last little bit of information. Like, you don't need that level. You need engineers building, managers ensuring timelines are going and that people are actually doing what they're saying they're doing, right? Agile is a sign of bad management. In some sense, yeah, depending on how agile that agile is, right? At some point, do you ever get help from other devs in Falcor? So this is something I've always wanted to talk about. I'm not sure how to say it yet, but there's something that there's a short coming out of this that I want to say. You constantly hear people saying, oh, we need to write all of our code in JavaScript because all we have are JavaScript engineers or something along that line, right? Where the problem is that we have to adhere to this one singular path because if we don't, people on the outside who find bugs won't be able to contribute to what we're doing. And here's my kind of inverse take to that, which is that I have been working on plenty of projects that were both inner source and open source for a company. And every single time that's ever happened, no single person ever has come in specifically on inner source has ever helped out in any way ever. It seems crazy to say that you must program in, say, JavaScript so that other people can contribute because no one's going to contribute, no one's going to help you. You should just be able to build it in the language you want, long as you can make it fit in the stack, because at the end of the day, you and whoever is on your team are the only people responsible for maintaining and making that project successful, and nobody ever is going to come in there out of the goodness of their own free will, come and help you make the project better. Inner source is always a lie. It's always been a lie. There is no such thing as inner source. Onboarding is not the problem because people don't have time to just stop doing their job to go play data splunker to try to figure out why your project isn't working. No one at your team's gonna do that. They're gonna file a ticket, and that's that. The reason is not to write Haskell. This is true. This is probably the reason why this stuff fails so much, is that people who have this license go off and write it in Haskell. And then you literally are the only person that can look at it. What's inner source you're referring to? Inner source is when a big company has like open source internally. Haskell mentioned, let's go. You know what I think is a tragedy? I think every single person that starts a CI/CD pipeline, some person that builds an internal service, and they use JavaScript, I think is a sign of a failure waiting to happen. JavaScript reliability is extremely difficult. Use Go, use Rust, use anything else. Use Java. At least Java tells you when things are gonna throw and you have to handle them. Skill issue, it's not a skill issue. It's like simply not a skill issue. It's that JavaScript just doesn't let you know every single place that an error can occur, and things just constantly fail. It has like a 1% failure rate. Do you hate JavaScript because of Falcor? No, I hate JavaScript because it doesn't tell you what's throwing and that you don't have to handle it. I want errors as values. I want to be forced to handle it, and I hate handling errors. Handling errors is tedious and annoying. Errors happen constantly. Errors are everywhere. They're all throughout your code, and it's absolutely frustrating having to deal with them. But what's more frustrating is the fact that you don't deal with them, and they just screw up your project slowly over time. The name. Just don't be like Rick. Be a good teammate. And talent also matters as well, okay?